too. Thank you, Sam. Simon. So the panel here is about mobile gaming. Maybe do you know that mobile gaming today is 65% of our industry, so is the main market in our industry. So I'm really pleased to welcome 4 different profile and 4 different way to think to create the mobile gaming. They will talk about mobile gaming. They will talk about what they did, how they work with influencer, how they received awards, why they received awards, etc., etc. Why freemium, why premium, etc., etc. So don't imagine I've worked on this. Rose and Fred did everything. I have the question here, but they wrote it. So I will not even present you. I will let you, the 4 of you, present themselves. So maybe, Fred, do you want to begin to present yourself?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I can begin on my side. So I've been on the video game industry since the last 13 years. At the beginning, I've been working with Atari Infogram, so on the Nintendo and the Mega Drive as a programmer. After that, I decided to move to Montreal. So like it was 22 years ago now. I began to with opening the Atari studio in Canada. And after 2 years, it's going bad because of the internet bubble that exploded. So we did a spin-off with the studio, and we began to work on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS. And we begin to work with Ludia at some point on mobile game, and we decided to merge with Ludia at that point. So it was like 13 years ago, and we began to work on, at the beginning it was paid app for like 2 years. And we saw the opportunity to move on the freemium model that we're going to talk a little bit more in a few minutes. And we really spend our time on the freemium model for the last 12 years. And it was super successful with IP such as Jurassic World Alive and so on. And I was in charge of the production.
Hello, my name is Rose. So I have been at Ludia now for close to 10 years. I came in a administrative capacity first and slowly grew that role into becoming the senior product marketing manager. So I've touched on most of the games, but have worked mainly as the freemium model in the free-to-play, nurturing relationships with Apple, Google, and all the store platforms as well as the licensors.
Thanks. We've got our own microphone. My name is Thomas Waterzooi. That's not my real name. It's just because I come from Ghent, and they make really good Waterzooi soup there. But you can hear more about that in my talk later at 3:30 in room 3. I made a mobile game called Please Touch Your Artwork. I didn't go for the freemium model, which I'm not saying I regret, but I'm not rich either. But that's okay. I work by myself. I'm a solo developer, so that's one of the reasons that I can do it. Allows me to experiment more, and it won some awards here and there. It won the Google Indie Festival, the Google Play Indie Festival Award, and it was a finalist of the Apple Design Award. So I'm very grateful for that.
Hey, and last but not least, my name is Simon. I'm the CEO of Boris. I started my career at the Electronic Arts Mobile in Montreal in 2005. At the time, we were developing mobile games where the phones were not even smart yet. So it was 20 years ago almost, and it was very different at the time. So I'm a programmer, so I have a more technical perspective of the old industry. So later I founded my own company. It's called, like I said, Boris. We are offering work for hire services to other company. We work on different platforms, including mobile and with many different tools, Unity, Unreal, C++. So yeah, that's what we do.
Wonderful. So maybe you haven't guessed, so three of our speakers are from Quebec and one is from Belgium. So guess who? uh, so thank you. You present yourself and you even answer the first question. Why did you make mobile game except Rose? Why are you working or begin you to work for mobile game with mobile game?
I needed a job. So I came in originally as like more of an administrative. So I was working with the game teams to make sure that their data entry, a lot of the manual tasks that now these days are more automated through API calls. So I was in charge of doing notifications, in-game mails, data entry, submissions. And so I was working really closely with the production teams to make sure that I knew what their deadlines were, I knew what their timelines were, so I can make sure to plan ahead. And as I was doing this, I was realizing there was a lot of marketing opportunities that we were missing. So be it push notifications to let players know when an event was starting, or sales, and just generally just making sure players were aware of what was happening in the games. So that's kind of how I first started getting into more of a marketing role. But throughout all that time, I've always been working really closely with production. I actually had my desk right in front of Fred for 8 years. And so anytime he took a Kleenex, it was off my desk. But anytime also anybody wanted to talk to Fred and he was in a meeting, they would all come and kind of line up next to my desk. And so obviously that would just open up communications. Just talking to the teams, finding out what they were working on, finding out just kind of things that you wouldn't necessarily get if you weren't working in an office, or you wouldn't have that networking opportunity to just know more about what was going around you.
I'm wondering why Fred needed those Kleenexes.
I had the good Kleenex. I had like the ones with like the cream, like the Vicks in it. And so I remember one time I had them and he was like, "Oh, these are good." And he just like ran off with the box.
Yeah, I also didn't really say why I got into why I went for mobile.
That's true, but I was a little bit confused with your Waterzooi story.
It's a very complex story. No, the main reason I went mobile, and I'm also going to discuss this later in my talk at 3:30, room 3. Is
room 3.
Mine's
room
also
3.
3:30.
I'm sorry, yeah, that's why I'm doing it, because I know people rather want to see you than me, so I have to give this extra push. No, anyway, so the idea was, first of all, because it's please touch the artwork, that the game is about touching paintings, so it kind of makes sense to do it on a mobile platform where you actually have touch controls. But the second reason is also because I I found this manifest at a certain point, and it had this set of rules to make games for a new audience, to broaden up the medium of games, make it more artful. And one of the last rules was actually to make games more accessible, right? With a sustainable model, but more accessible. And I thought, okay, everybody already has a phone in their pockets. It's literally, there are more phones than people in this world. It's the most used gaming console ever. So why would we not try to make games and better games on that platform? So that was my main reason for choosing mobile. Voilà.
And so I have a question for both of you, because you are doing premium. So why are you choosing at first the business model to have them to paid to play your game instead of the freemium model?
So when I was working at EA, obviously I was a small part of the game, so I was not really involved in the decision of what would be the model, so freemium, free-to-play, or premium. So at the time, we were just building the game, and that was it. When I started my own studio, I wanted, same thing as Thomas here, so the mobile phones are everywhere. So it was, our game was a casual game, so we thought, okay, let's go on mobile. That's probably the easiest platform you can find. So that was in 2016. And at the time, the premium games were still, it was still an option. So we decided to go with a premium just because it would take less time to set up the microtransactions or the ads or anything. So it was simpler like that. I mean, with that first game, it was a left-right dimension. So that game, well, it was like a low cost, low expectations kind of game. So we were pretty happy. We were able to make a bit of profit. But after that, with our second game, then we were like, okay, we were able to sold, I don't know, maybe 10,000 games. So let's do freemium. So it's going to be crazy. People, so the game is going to be free. So people are going to download it, and it will be, so we'll be millionaires. But that went differently. So we had even less downloads, even if the game was free. And the reason behind that is that when you try to sell a premium game on mobile, so there are less premium games now. So it's probably easier for an indie studio to publish a premium game. But when you want to go freemium, you'll have to compete with all the big ones, and your game will probably, so there are, I mean, I don't know, maybe thousands of games that are released every day, and you're one among them, and you have to make sure, so you have to invest as crazy in marketing, and we didn't have the budget for that. So our second game was worse. So in terms of profitability, it was, we did less with our second game than with our first game. So yeah, so that's why. So now, if I had to go for another mobile project, we would probably still go premium, even if that's not the like, people, they want to have free games, and I know that if you want to be very, very successful, you have to, like, the more profitable games are all free games. But honestly, as an indie studio, we cannot afford that. I mean, unless you have a partner, like a publisher, or you have a very, very good game, and Apple or Google will give you visibility.
So yeah, lots of similarities there. I also believe there's less premium games, so it's easier to stand out. I think that's what you were referring to in the mass. And but however, yeah, now that I won a Google Play Indie Award, so what you're saying, Simon, like, the platform's kind of pushing me, but even then I see the conversion is pretty low. So I am considering switching to maybe not the full freemium model, but something in between, which I would consider, I don't know if there's a term for it, you tell me, is that you download it, you play it as a demo, and then you just buy the full game as an in-app purchase, which for me is completely fine. But actually, I forgot to answer, like, the first part of the question is, like, why did I start with premium in the first place? Is just because I'm a bit traditional in that sense. For me, games are clearly a form of art, and all forms of art in this world are, not free. I know it's a tendency in software, right? We've been using Google for free all of these years without even thinking a second about it, and it kind of how do you say it? Like, went over into mobile gaming, but actually, there's no real reason why games should be free. So yeah, that was kind of my reason.
Something you mentioned that I think is very, very important. It's the number of applications that are paid versus the number of freemium. As a year ago, more or less, the study said that 95% on the store were freemium model, and only 5 were paid. So to your point, much more easy to discover a paid app. But at the same time, in the money point of view, the people that succeed on the freemium model can succeed very well. As an example, the last Diablo game, they are doing like 1 million per day, so which is just super big. And so there is not a lot of games that can succeed at that level, but the game that succeed can be really big. The way to monetize on the game, there is like more or less 3 big parts: the in-app that you mentioned, the ads that can help the player that do not want to pay, so they watch a video and then they have coin and so on. And one of the big parts is the subscription. So that can be a way on your side because you can give it for free, and it's good because instead of only paying one time, and because it's like you mentioned, there is art point of view where perhaps you can add more level, add more things, and if you are able to do that, then people can pay subscription because they want to stay and they want to see what's coming next. But the difficulty on the subscription, it's you need to maintain that game. You need to be able to come with a lot of content months after months, and it's one of the biggest complex things in the freemium model because you need to maintain the live ops. And to Simon's point, as an investment, it begins to be complicated because yes, you have to add SDK for the in-app, the ads, but also you need good tools to be able to do the live ops. Usually they're super complex, and you want to Rose point, making sure that you will be able to reach people with push note, mailing, and so on. So it's complex, and it costs usually the team size are very different. The first freemium game that we did at Ludia was Family, Food and Friends, where we were able to have like 1 million DAU. And at that time, so it was like 10 years ago, the team size was about less than 10 people. But the last game that we did, like super successful Jurassic World Alive, which is a geolocalization game where Simon and his company helped us to be on time for that game because it was super tight. And on that game, we were like 100 people for like a year, so it was super hard. So very different perspective as an investment money point of view. I will let
DAU is daily active users. I'm just saying this because, you know, I'm also new to all of these terms. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and so the other thing I was to the point is that if you're going into a premium versus a freemium, you do need to think of games as a service past your initial launch. So you need to have a more robust roadmap, to Fred's point. It's not a one and done, you can ship it and walk away. If you want to maintain the users, you want to maintain your DAU, you want to maintain your revenue peaks, you're going to need to be constantly pushing out content, pushing out updates to fight the algorithms in the stores, you know, updating creatives, staying on top of trends. So there is a lot more work to be done, both pre-production and post-launch, but it is going to give you something that is sustainable over time. Usually you get to a point where you can be in more of a maintenance mode if you have your rotation, you have your frequency, and then you can kind of pivot to maybe another title or just more content coming through. Versus the paid apps, which usually it's a one and done, usually have like a closed story, an entire storyline within.
Yeah, I agree. There's a known Belgian game developer called Bart Bonte, and what he does, it's really something I would like to do as well. He has very short production cycles, like 4, 5, 6 months, and what you say as well. I think this is something maybe that only applies for mobile, but for me, I discovered that release is not the end, right? And a lot of mind of people is like, oh, everything released this one day, this one moment, and it's very stressful. But again, only for mobile, I'm definitely sure that release is not the end. You can add some new features, even a new language, right? Can count as an extra way to have some kind of marketing beat as well. And this is also what Bart Bontes did. Like he makes more smaller games. Some of them are premium, some of them are freemium. And actually what I really like about how he solves it is that I recently discovered the name of this term. It's push ads versus pull ads, I guess. So push ads are like ads that jump up in your face without you wanting it, and I really hate those. I think most people do, but yeah, it's the best of both worlds. But what Barbonte is pull ads. So basically, you choose when to watch an ad in exchange for a reward.
Yes.
Right?
So banners, interstitials will be your push ads. So those are going to be shown to everyone. It's possible that we put a limitations or segmentation, so that way, if you are a new user, you might only get it after 2 weeks of play. But then you have rewarded ads, which is encouraging engagement from the players, especially players who are not likely to monetize. You're giving them an opportunity to kind of grow and engage in the game and get that currency without necessarily needing to invest dollars. I actually used to do the ad monetization at Ludia as well. And the way I actually described it is kind of like at Costco. I'm not sure if there's Costco here, but perfect. So whenever you go into any stores, you kind of have like the sample counter. And so you're able to kind of taste everything. And eventually you're going to go into the freezer or the fridge to get the item that you tasted. So rewarded ads to me is that little taste of what premium currency is going to be like, which if you are engaged enough, you're going to go and buy it eventually. So it's kind of, I know there's a concern where we're like, oh no, we're giving ads to people who would be payers. They're never going to pay. And what we've actually seen is the opposite. Players who engage with ads are more likely to become payers down the line.
I just wanted to add, so what he then does is this mix of premium and freemium model, and what he then says is in Apple App Store and Google Play, you get free cross promotion, right? Because at the bottom of each game page, it shows the games from the same editor, the same creator. So in this way, maybe people come to him with the free games, and then they check out his other work. They really like the free games. They check out his other work, and maybe then they decide to support him as a creator and maybe buy a premium game. So I think that's a very smart model. Yeah, and it's like I said, the very short cycles are good to quickly launch ideas. It avoids project fatigue. The typical meme where you have the game developer that's already looking at the next one, like a project passes by, is like, oh, something new, oh, I want to work on that, oh cool, game jam. And yeah, I wanted to say one more thing, but I'll just save it for later. Simon, you want to add something to this?
Maybe I can share the our last attempt with the with the freemium. So pre-pandemic, we so like I said, we're a work for hire company. So basically, we work with bigger companies like Ludia to help them build their games, and sometimes we have available resources that, well, instead of just saying, okay, do whatever you want, we ask them to work on smaller projects. So during pandemic, we had one of them. So it was a maze game, so something that it took us maybe less than a month to do. So it was a very small budget, and we decided, okay, let's go free to play, and let's see what happens. So it was a kind of like a super casual game, but with fancier graphics. So we ask our artists to work on that game, and usually like the super casual games are just lines and shapes and that kind of stuff. And so we decided to go like with a very nice 2D art style. So we shipped the game. Maybe the game cost to develop less than 10,000. So it's very tiny budgets, but probably the same thing as the studio we're mentioning, where they are like trying a lot of small games. So it's one guy, yeah. So our team was probably like three people on that. So we decided to launch the game. So decided to launch it in Australia. Let's say, let's find a good market to soft launch it. And my team, they come to me and say, okay, what's our budget for the for this not early access, but for this soft launch? So I say, okay, let's go 3,000. I mean, that's a fair budget. I mean, 30% of our overall budget. So in 3 days, we spent $3,000, and I was like, okay, let's check the like the KPI, the metrics, and see what's our retention. And so I was not expecting to monetize for sure, but I was only curious about, okay, how many user I would get from that 3,000, and how many days would they stay. And you know what? We got like zero. It's like zero conversation. So I've just spent like $3,000. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we got 200 players. They played for a couple of days. And I mean, the game was good. I mean, my children, they play that game and they love that game. It's a nice little game, but like, so competition is so, and we did our job correctly. I mean, we targeted other games where an ads would make sense in that game, and that type of players would probably want to play our game. But again, it's, I don't know, acquisition now is like what, $5-6 per player. It's crazy. It used to be less than $1. It used to be like a couple of cents. And now it's like $5-6 per user, and you're not even sure how long they're going to play. That's crazy. So the market, it's really hard for indies to compete in that market.
Yeah, this part is very hard because now, even as a tools point of view, when you are doing user acquisition, you can't specifically target the player you want because of the restriction from Apple and Google. So before the IDFA, that was the new rules where you can't really ping the right user that are playing the same type of game that you are doing. So it complexifies a lot the user acquisition, and you pay now a lot of money to have user, but you even don't know if those users will be the good one for your game. So it complexifies a lot the strategic part. Rose will be able to talk about it. Also, the paradigm changed a lot because like 10 years ago, probably you have like 100,000 app on the store. Now it's more than a game, and now it's more than 1 million. So the way to discover your game is super hard. That reason at Ludia we choose to use the IP. So we are buying licenses like Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, Dragon, so DC Comics. So some big IPs, because we know that those IP will be linked to movies or to big activities, and it will help a lot to have a lot of users at some point. For example, Jurassic World Alive, last year, new movie, and we were back with a big number of players. Even we were not the game linked to the movie, we get most of the players that come to our game because of the way it's been done on the App Store or Google Store. When you begin to search, like Jurassic World, we were in top position because the game exists before the movie. And so one of the competitors buy the license for the movie, and they were not able to have the number of players that come to our game because they came later with their game. So it's super hard. It's even the most complex part outside of doing the game. Doing the game is already a challenge to, as you mentioned, Simon, super hard to have the retention, because if you want to succeed on the freemium model, you need to have a game with a lot of retention. Player need to come back each day and for many months. Like again, a couple of years ago, it was like you were super happy if people stay 1 month, but now with big game like Supercell, player or Ludia, players are staying on the game for about 5-7 years. We have we have games that are live for 7 years, and people continue to spend on it. So you need to have a lot of content, a lot of activities, but when it works, it's awesome. But it's complex.
I have two questions. Yeah, because listening to you, I say, oh, I have so many questions. I've done nothing for this panel, but yeah, you are inspiring, the four of you. Maybe Rose, you want to react to this question before my question? Okay, so I have two questions. You can choose which. Or you can react to the question before, as you wish, Thomas. First question, you talk about the fact that 99% of the game on mobile are freemium, but I thought that there was a difference between Apple ecosystem and Google ecosystem. Not anymore?
It's the same. I think the study has been done like 2 years ago, and it was like, as I remember, 92% in Apple was free, and 97%, something like that, in Android at that point.
Yeah.
So as an average, it's probably like quite the same thing now. So yes, it's massive as a freemium model.
But the majority of people buying games on Apple are the majority of people buying games on Apple, despite there is more players, more gamers on Google.
So a lot of that actually comes down to the quality of the user. On Apple, since Apple devices are more of a premium product, it does usually mean that Apple users tend to have higher thresholds for payment, whereas Android technically usually goes on to, yes, they do have very much higher end phones, but the majority are more affordable options. And so oftentimes the payer wallet is not as big as that would be on Apple. So there's a much bigger focus on iOS, which is the Apple App Store, which makes it even harder that Apple did sort of ban tracking with the IDFA removal with iOS 15, what Fred was mentioning before. So essentially, it makes it a little bit harder for us to be able to go and find these quality users who we know are going to enjoy the game, but also are likely to convert. So when we go on to Android, we do have lower expectations or thresholds that we are aiming for, because we know that Android players are likely to be a little bit of a lower quality than the iOS ones.
Okay. And my second question, I would like to ask the four of you, what do you think about the model of subscription like Netflix and Apple Arcade? That was your question. But I say, yeah, that's a really good question.
You stole his question, Julien.
Yeah,
Why'd you do that?
Sorry. I'm also an imposter like everyone since this morning.
Yeah, because it's a new model. So now you can be part of the Apple Arcade and Netflix. So it means that you're going to pay one subscription and will be part of a package. So in my point of view, probably not a market. I mean, we did some game at Ludia on Netflix model now that Rose can probably more talk about. But I think it's probably less a market for big company. It can depend because Apple can really come and decide to grab one of your game because we send them regularly what we are working on, so they can grab and say, oh, we want to have it, for example, or Netflix. But I think it's some good opportunities for indie studio, because it means that indies can pitch to Netflix or Apple Arcade, and it can be good opportunity, because at that point you will not have to have problem with the user acquisition. You only have to work on what most people do, like deliver the high quality games, and so I think it can be awesome for company like indies. Yeah.
Yeah, so I immediately have a reply to that. 5 years ago, well, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, Apple Arcade when there was no Netflix yet, was for me the ultimate goal. Right? It's prestige. Apple has a certain prestige, and I was like, yeah, I want to be in there. But of course, I was still developing the game. I saw some nice, more story-driven games that were trying out a bit of alternative, experimental, artistic stuff as well. But then by the time that my game was kind of getting finished, I was going to events and I was trying to talk with people from Apple Arcade. I felt like the platform shifted, or the content in the platform shifted, because Apple themselves, I have to be careful because the Apple gods might be watching, because they realized, like a lot of these big companies do, they realized that, okay, yeah, it's harder than we thought, right? It was only $5 a month. Maybe they didn't have as much people returning as they would like. So maybe it's like 2 years ago already, they kind of shifted their strategy. And I've been in talk with people from Apple because I was nominated for the Design Award. I also got these private sessions, but you could just ask questions through chat, and ask them like, yeah, what do you think about this? The thing I just said, like, do you feel like you've shifted? And they just denied it. And this is a typical, again, sorry, Apple, typical Apple thing to do. It's like,
you need to check back, because I think they really try, in my opinion.
I'm
not sponsored by Apple.
I have access to Apple Arcade, so
Yeah.
I can see what's on there,
Yeah.
and I don't feel that my content, the things I would play, are not on there anymore. And this, actually, you can simplify it to just like short, story-driven, deep experiences. And the easy answer is there's no retention. This is what I think. I don't have the stats, I don't have the analytics, but that's my short feedback.
So, can someone refer me to the Apple guys? How can we? Because
we can talk
we haven't pitched to them yet. But well, since day one, I was like, okay, that's probably going to change our life as indie developers. And I don't know what are the typical deals that they are doing, but no, no one does. And when you know it, you're not allowed to. But something I would like to add is, so we have a small team of designers at Triple Boris, and if I ask them to, let's say, okay, we want to work on a new game, and I tell them, okay, it must be freemium, okay. So then they will have to design with all these principle of well, the retention and acquisition and monetization, and they will have to develop a game around what we know is working. So we will have to check other games, and okay, they are doing it like that or like that. And so innovation, it's hard to create innovation as an indie in the freemium market, but with Apple Arcade, I feel that my designer would be okay. So okay, now we just have to create a good game, and they are going to take the financial risk of with the retention and everything. They're going to take care of that. So as an investor, I'm more willing to tell my team, okay, let's pitch a game, and let's have Apple Arcade in mind, instead of, okay, let's try to self-publish and again spend 3,000 and get no result.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, different types of games are going to work on different platforms. A premium game may work in Apple Arcade. A freemium game is not likely to work in Apple Arcade, mainly because we do have, evolving games as a service, new content pushes. So yeah, knowing where, I think doing a look at where you want to go with the game, where you are likely to end up with your game, and then kind of look at your distribution channels in that way. So if you're more of an indie it might be better to go the paid route because you are providing a high quality product with a finite end, versus if you want to do something as games as a service or on a longer tail, or even if you want to get into hyper casual, which is what's currently flooding the App Store. So hyper casual is low budget games which are heavily funded through advertisements, either banners, notifications, etc. Depending on where you are, you may want to choose these different versions to kind of dive into.
Yeah, I would actually, correct me if I'm wrong, argue that the design process of making a freemium game or developing a freemium game is converging towards what Apple is expecting for Apple Arcade. So then it is a subscription-based model, but in the end, they want the same thing. You see what I mean? Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe.
Yeah, you're correct. At the end of the day, you want people to play your game. So
And come back to it.
And come back to it. Exactly. So what Apple wants is that people come in whatever game, but they come back and play. So the retention is the same. But instead of when you are doing a freemium game, you need to balance what you are giving for free and what you want people at some point to be able to pay in-app. And so player psychological things, you need to really think about what people like, and when they are doing in-app, they need to be super happy because you want them to do it again. So it's super hard to balance what you're giving to the player, how he'll be happy, but not too much happy because otherwise he will not spend any more money. So it's super hard. That part is really a good thinking process about balance, and so it's not easy. On the Apple side, you do not have to manage that part. You just is not the right word, but you need to think about the game and to have a fun game. And if the game is fun, the player come back. But you do not have to think about the how I can grab some money without too much, and so it simplifies a bit.
So I also, one more time, I have to interrupt you because we have 10 minutes for a question for the audience. So if someone have a question. So, does someone have a question about mobile game ecosystem?
Hello. So my question is, we know that the mobile industry, really changed across the years, coming from a premium model to the current freemium model. And my question is quite simple: how do you think it might go to for the next years?
I think it's really hard to predict, honestly. But what I think is that we will see probably more and more Apple Store or Netflix, not Apple Store, sorry, Apple Arcade or Netflix or Microsoft that can come with their like subscription model, and they're coming with different game. I think freemium model is there for a long period of time. Also, on the freemium model, you have a lot of subscription only on one game with the Game Pass and so on. So I only think that the games are beginning to be more and more bigger. Now it costs a lot of money to do one game, because you have like multiplayer, you have chat, you have the Game Pass each month, and it's game as a service, and you want to make sure that players that are coming and after 1 month they say, wow, but there is a new season coming, and wow, I want to be part of it, and I will spend another $10 for the next month. And so there is a lot of mechanics to make sure to have the the player engage. And to be able to do that, you need to do good community between the player, but also from the developer with the player. So making sure about what they want. So I think at 3, it's what Rose going to talk about. But this part is super important. You want to make sure that people understand what you are doing, but you want also to be better able to understand what the player wants, making sure that there is a fit and we create a big community together.
Sorry, I was also just going to add, I think we're going to be seeing less and less new titles come out as these production costs increase, while we see bigger games just kind of have longer tails. Candy Crush has been out now for 13 years, 14 years. They're still going strong. They're still one of the top 10 games every year. So I think we're going to start seeing less and less new ones and more investment on existing long-tail titles.
What I hope... No? What I hope is going to happen, right? Because nobody can predict the future. Is that, and I have this feeling, also kind of what Simon already said, is that people will start looking to premium as kind of a quality label, right? Because you just mentioned this overflood of hyper-casual games actually deteriorates the free-to-play market. And as these players mature, I hope they have this sense of thinking like, okay, maybe I have this smaller pre-curated list of non-free games, and hopefully that's what keeps us alive. Voila.
And maybe on a technical side of it, phones are getting better and better every year. We're able to so the capacity of the phones are better. So we can expect even bigger games and for Triple Boris, it's a good thing because that means our client will always need more developers because, what Fred just said, they were like 10 people on their first project and 100 on the, so that means like more developers, and more developers mean more business for us. So we're very happy of that.
As a question?
And very quickly, because Rose talked about Candy Crush, and on Candy Crush, I think they are between 400 to 700, and it's a match 3. So I mean, it's not super complex on the gameplay point of view, but it's super complex other way because there is AI that analyzing how you're playing, and they want to make sure that after a while you succeed. So it's complex in some part, but when you're playing the game, you think it's simple and an indie developer can do it, but there are like 400 or 700 people working on it, so it's big.
I wanted to ask, most of the discussion went around a lot freemium versus premium and all of that, but mostly limited to like the mobile sphere. Where I see now that some of the like well-known games that are succeeded on mobile are actually cross-platform, as you were mentioning, because mobile phones get better. So now you can get Fortnite on your mobile too. You can get Genshin Impact on your mobile too, even if they're on other platforms. And do you feel that is something that more and more, with the bridging of the gap, developers might actually want to look into, like, hey, maybe actually your game can also get into that extra platform like a console, and then creating the model for it? But yeah,
very good question. In my point of view, the industry, meaning the PC or console game, begin to inspire themselves to mobile. At the beginning, they were thinking that like, let people play with the phone, it's not good quality and nobody gonna play. Like big company in the AAA, at the beginning, when people begin to play on the mobile, they do not take too much seriously that platform, in my point of view. And years after years, they begin to see that the market is there, as you explained, because a lot of people have their phone on their pocket and it's super easy to play with. And they begin to better understand that there is a big market on it and you can do a lot of money, and sometimes even more than the AAA. And as the example of Diablo, that's doing 1 million per day. So it's where the AAA publisher or developer begin to say, okay, let's do the same thing as a freemium model, because it means that you will have a lot of big barrier on the entry for the player to be able to play. And if they love the game, they're gonna spend for like special abilities or whatever. So I think the model is going there for certain type of game for sure. And I think there is shift, but again, same problem as we have on the mobile. To be able to do that, it means that you need to have a super high level of quality of the game, because otherwise, people going and they will not spend money if they do not like the game. So, and I remember at the beginning of the freemium model in the Ludia company, I remember because a lot of people working on those games were like, we're not going to do free game, right? And we say, yes, we're going to do free game. I say, but how we will do money? And we say, but it's because we will have very high quality game that people's going to spend money time after time, and it's the way we will have the money back. But they were thinking that because it's free game that we will do cheap game, and but it's not going to work if the game are not high level of quality. Nobody gonna spend money. So I think to your question,
cross-platform. Well, we've been talking about that for years now, but I really think that it's now becoming a thing. So, well, I cannot give you details, but because I'm under NDA, but we're currently working on like very big cross-platform titles, and it's so cool for the players. Well, I think that if you can continue, maybe not continue, but if you can still play on mobile, the game you're playing on console, the game that you like everywhere, I mean, for sure, it's something good for the players. And I can tell you that we have been also in discussion with like big companies that are now porting their engine to mobile, something that we wouldn't even imagine like 5 years ago. So yeah, it's becoming a thing.
Yeah, I think also with the some of the stats that Julien had mentioned before, 65% of all games are on mobile. I'm sure a lot of the AAAs kind of started seeing their market share kind of go away, slide away to mobile. And so they are making that shift to make sure that they are able to capture that market. Because otherwise, if everything starts shifting to mobile, well, their game sales are going to go down a little bit. If, you know, I can get similar quality or similar game mechanics, and there's a lot of new games that have come out in the last year that have amazing game mechanics and are free to play and you can take it with you. A lot of it is going to come down to the type of game it is. Is it something that I'm going to want to play on the go? Or is it something that I'm going to want to sit down and invest my time and kind of like a couple of blocks of hours to play through, where you'll be able to have those crossovers? You know, for Ludia, we also did start, yes, we had our premium titles, but back in the day, Facebook used to actually have a bunch of games on Canvas. And that is actually how Candy Crush started. That is how Heyday and our Jurassic Park Builder game was also on Flash first on Facebook. And so we're kind of seeing that kind of comeback through Steam and through other platforms that are PC or console.
Sorry, I have one last
I was
word.
just saying it's crazy we didn't mention the metaverse once in this talk.
And you ruined it.
Wow, wonderful last words. So I have to stop the panel here because it's time.